So now we're going to look at decomposing numbers and using the vertical number line for rounding whole numbers as well as decimal place values. This is a strategy that Engage New York expects students to use and apply on the state test as well as other assessments. And also just another great way to promote critical thinking for our young students. So we're going to use the same value we used during Cuba, which is 97 and 372 thousandths. The first step is decomposing the number. This initially states that we're going to find the most of each of these various place values that will still give us this same original value. So let's just start off with writing our initial number in their respective place values. I have 9 tens, 7 ones, 3 tenths, 7 hundredths, and 2 thousandths. Now, if I wanted to rewrite this number in the most amount of ones, I know that in 97 there are 97 ones. And then we're going to continue to fill out our number. Now, the most amount of tenths. So let's look at it again. We know that 10 tenths make one whole number. So by that, we know that 97 ones is the same as 97 times 10, which is going to be 970 plus our original 3 tenths. So we will have 973 tenths. Then we continue the rest of our number. As you notice, there is a specific pattern that is occurring within our decimal place value chart. Each of our values are moving, are shifting over by the power of the base tens. So if I were to do the hundreds, you guessed it right, it would be 9, 7, 3, 7, and then 2 tenths. And then finally, the total number of thousandths in the number 97 and 372 thousandths would give us 97,372 thousandths. So that is the first step, which we have now fully decomposed our number. Now what we're going to do is draw our vertical number line and use what we have to help us determine if we are rounding up or down. So right now I'm drawing my number line. And within our number line, there are various components. The first component of our number line is the base value. This base value is the value that we would get if we are rounding down. Then we have the next value up, which will tell us if we are rounding up, we would get to that, and then the midway point. In order to find the base value, we need to look at what we're rounding to. So let's round to the nearest thousandths. So I'm going to write that here. Round to nearest. I said thousandths? No, let's do hundreds actually. Sorry about that, guys. Round to the nearest hundreds. Now, similar to Cuba, I'm listening to what they're telling me to round to. And they said to the nearest hundredths. So I'm going to look back at my number, which is 97.372. I'm looking at my chart. And I see that the most amount of hundredths is going to be 9,737 hundredths, which is the same as 97 and 37 hundredths. So that is our base value. And if we did the same here and we wrote this in decimal form, we would get the same value. So I'm writing my base value, which is 97.37. And we usually add a 0 here to help our students determine the halfway point. Now the next thousandths up would be 97.38. Sorry, hundredths. 97.38 hundredths. Our halfway point would be 97.30 and for students to really get this, I want them to look at 70 and 80. What is between 70 and 80? 75. So now we have our base value. We have our midpoint. And we have the next rounded value. The next step is to plot your value that you have. And since we are rounding to the nearest hundreds, we need to look at the thousands. So on my number line, I'm going to plot where 97.372 thousandths would be. I use my midway point as my reference, and I know that 72 is less than 75. So my value is here. And now that I know that it is below the halfway point or the midway point, I'm going to round down. And this is how we use the decomposition of numbers as well as the vertical number line. Let's try one more example together. So now let's round to the nearest. Let's round to the nearest tens. And this may get a little tricky because I've noticed that in class, when we are rounding to the nearest next value, the nearest tens or the nearest hundreds, and we're regrouping, students are forgetting that, when you go from 90, we don't write 90, 10, we write 100. So let's see. Let's round to the nearest tens, and let's see what happens here. Again, I'm drawing my number line, my base, my next, and my midpoint. Now, again, to the nearest tens, if I look back at my number again, 97.372, I know that if I'm rounding to the nearest tens, my base will be right here, 9 tenths, which is the same as 90. The next 10 up, 90 plus 10 will give me 100. And my midway point is 95. Let me just add a 0 here, 0 here, 0 here, even though I'm looking at my ones place value. Now I'm plotting my number, 97, which is going to be between 100 and 95. Based on the visual representation on the number line, I know right away that I am rounding up. And I can always double check by using Cuba. So if I were to use Cuba for this specific, rounding to the nearest tens, I'm going to go circle, underline. 7 is a bully. 7 means to round up. So some students may do, because they know that they have to round up, and they put a 10 here. But this is not the next 10 up, because when we read this number, this is 910. The next 10 up is going to be 100, and then all zeros afterwards. My answer matches here. My answer matches here. I know I am correct. And that is how you use Cuba to help you check your answer with the use of decomposing numbers and the vertical number line. Thank you so much. I hope this has helped clear out any confusion. Again, the main pull away from this is to determine the base value using the decomposition and paying close attention to what we're rounding to. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me.